On this week's Mailbag episode, we are finally back. I am somewhat healthy, and we are recapping this weekend series between the Padres and the Rays, going over some of your questions, talking about the bullpen, what to expect going forward, the playoff push, and all that stuff. So without further ado, it's been a while. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Monday, September 2nd. As always, I'm your host, with sometimes occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes, as evidenced by my shortness of breath that randomly dawned upon me. You can follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, Javiiipeno, or follow the show at LO_Padres for updates, posts of the episode, updates that would tell you why I was not able to record last week. And also, go check out my work at justbaseball.com, a fantastic website where I write about the Padres and general baseball, and also have a podcast called Baseball versus the World, which is about general baseball funness. On today's episode, guys, first of all, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We love FanDuel very, very much on this podcast. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, so if you notice there that my intro wasn't the best, that is because I am still a little bit sick. And for those unaware, that is why the show is on hiatus. I was genuinely very sick. I'm fine. I'm fine now. If I sound a little bit nasally, if you hear me cough, that is why. If you hear me like having trouble to get through full sentences and keep going the way at my same breakneck pace that I usually am, that's why, for the most part. And the reason why I'm still recording, even though I am still a little bit sick, is because I can actually speak now. I had no voice last week. It was really, really bad. But we are back, and thankfully, the Padres played pretty decently over the course of when I was sick. I would have really liked it if they played amazing. So then I would have been like, hey guys, look, I'll take another day, to get healthy and whatnot, because they keep winning without me. But we have a lot to talk about. We're not going to talk about the series that we missed a lot of last week, although we may have some points that talk about the previous series, which was the Cardinals series in which the Padres split it 2-2. I did have some people reach out, be like, hey, were there any takeaways from that? My big takeaway was that Suarez was due, and they just had one bad game, right? And it was aside, and the Suarez blown save, it's like that could go either way, and then they had one bad game in the fourth one. So not too much from that series to look at. I do think the Padres are currently at a point where like you kind of just like enjoy the ride. And I don't mean that in the sense of, hey, we're just doing great, nothing to critique. I mean in the sense of it feels like their destiny is almost set. At this point in the playoff standings, it looks like they would probably be playing the Arizona Diamondbacks round one, which is not preferred. That is not the ideal scenario. The ideal scenario would be if they somehow won the division. But unfortunately, the Dodgers are still up 4 games. Despite the fact that the Padres got hot, and the Dodgers were slipping a little bit, the Dodgers got some of the big players back, right? They got Mookie Betts back. They got Freddie Freeman back. Ohtani is going to be the first 50-50 player probably ever. So I think that team is probably not, it's not going to be like their best team. I think that's been very, very clear for a long time, that this is not going to be like a 128 win team, the way the Dodgers fans always act like they're going to be. But I don't think that they're going to collapse enough. Now we'll see. We'll see, because it's not inconceivable that the Dodgers just have like a weird sweep or anything like that. It's not inconceivable, but unfortunately, the Padres do not play them for the rest of the year until they get to late September. So that series, they play the Dodgers September 24th through the 26th, and then they play the D-backs to close out the season. So that's basically what we're looking at. I think we're in a point where it's kind of like who blinks first, right? If any, you're basically just looking for slip-ups. If the Dodgers were to be, oh my God, they got swept, then we might be in business. And same thing, you basically just need to be within range by the time you face them to have a chance at the division title. Same thing goes for the Diamondbacks. It doesn't really matter if they're the first or second wild card as far as I'm concerned, because they would be playing the D-backs either way. So that's not a big concern. You're basically just hoping at this point that the Padres maybe you don't have to play the D-backs. You'd much rather maybe they win the division, frankly, just for bragging rights. And instead you'd get to face a little bit lighter of an opponent. and it wouldn't be a wild card series, best 2 out of 3. So that's basically all you can root for at this point. And we're going to see. I think that the bigger question right now is the surging Cubs, whether the Chicago Cubs are going to surge into first place and whatnot, or into the wild card, I should say. Their offense has been one of the hottest in baseball all of a sudden, and the Mets are only 1 game behind the Braves. So I think that there's a lot at stake, but I don't know how much is currently at stake for the Padres, especially because it'd be very shocking if they fell out of the playoffs, although that would require like multiple sweeps. So basically, all you're looking for is no extremes. It's basically kind of what you're looking for the Padres. But yeah, guys, let's talk about this weekend series against the Rays, starting with yesterday's game. My apologies. Let's start with yesterday's game. I'll pause the next time I'm about to cough. Yesterday's game, the Padres win by a score of 4-3 with Mr. Dylan Cease getting the start. Unfortunately, Dylan Cease is on one of his little bit of what's mediocre, right? Not bad, but mediocre sort of stretches. He goes 5 innings in this one. Gives up 3 earned runs on 2 hits, 3 walks, and 4 Ks. The walks was the most unfortunate part, especially after, there'd be some innings where the Padres score some runs finally, and then you started off with a leadoff walk. That wasn't great. Not a lot of it was crazy, though, in terms of at least he wasn't getting hit hard, right, in this game. That's not the case that was happening with Dylan Cease, which is the most exciting part, which suggests maybe the next start and maybe the ending, this last month of the season that we're going to get the on-fire Dylan Cease, not just the average and certainly not the bad Dylan Cease. So that's really good to see. And what I mean by that is the only pitches they score here, or the only times they score here, Junior Caminero gets hit by a pitch and Josh Lowe grounds into a double play, fearless choice, allowing a run to score. That's basically it. And then the bullpen does give up 1 run. Was it earned? I'm not actually sure. Wait, where'd the 3rd run come from? My app isn't telling me. How did that happen? That's weird. Huh. Whatever. You guys get my point. It's not like he was giving up that much hard contact. And I know that was the Rays. I'm not really concerned about that, though. I don't really care about the matchups. I think Cease is about to turn the book. This was one of his whatever months. If you actually look at, if I'm not mistaken, his month-by-month splits, you actually can see a little bit of like an every other month thing going on. April 2.61 ERA. In May, he had a 4.08. In June, 4.94. Then July, 2.35. August, 4.43. So a little bit up and down. He has a 5.4 in September in 1 start. But I'm not worried. I do think that this guy can match up with the best of them when he's on. The question is whether or not he's going to be on. But whatever. Bottom line, great pitcher. Really excited about him. The Padres offense was able to do enough in this game with Jackson Merrill kick things off. It was a boring game to start, guys. Let's be real. Luis Ariz doing his best, you know what I mean? Putting together some tough at-bats, getting walked intentionally in a regular walk and a single in this one. But let me tell you, Jackson friggin' Merrill, man. Look, it's been a few weeks. It's actually been more than a few weeks. It's been like a month. I was getting a lot of flack from my listeners about Jackson Merrill versus Paul Skeens. Jackson Merrill hitting a home run in this one, making it 2-0. Jerks Profile gets a sac fly. Bogaerts gets a sac fly as well to sum up the scoring for the Padres yesterday. Bogaerts going 2 for 4, by the way. Here's the thing. I really think that it's getting to the point where it just feels like it's got to be Jackson Merrill. I don't want to it completely sidestep my points from before, which is that it was, it's been this month. And it's not like Jackson Merrill was on fire beforehand. He was a really good player, really solid player. He showed a lot of promise, and he was hitting for, a little bit more power, and the fact that he makes contact with basically every pitch was great. Like, he looked like a great up-and-coming future star. But now he looks like an upcoming future super-duper star, just to differentiate. And I've been just so impressed with him. He's tied the Padres' record, I believe, 4 home runs in a rookie season. I know you might be thinking, wow, Tatis, really? Well, Tatis, in fairness, missed a lot of games his rookie year, so he's not that power-oriented of a bat. But it's gotten to the point where I saw the other day, someone texted me that a lot of starts that Paul Skeens has actually come against the Cubs, and it was against when the Cubs were one of the worst teams in baseball. I do still think we gotta wait a little bit, but I really do think that he has to at least be the front runner right now. I am worried about a media bias, and I'm not talking about an East Coast or West Coast thing. I don't think that's what this is, because it's Pittsburgh, and it's not like Pittsburgh is known for the most media attention. It's because he's just more known. He's more famous. He has the famous girlfriend who's a gymnast, right? No hate to him and no shade to her, obviously, whatsoever. It's just that, it's usually pretty hard for a starting pitcher who doesn't pitch every day, who doesn't perform every day, to win an award like this, aside from Cy Young or Pitcher of the Year. Wish we had that. Or Rookie Pitcher of the Year, I should say. when position players play every day. They're just more important. So we're going to see. But my thing is, this guy isn't just... Is he putting on a historic season by rookie of the year standards? Not necessarily until a month ago. But what he is doing is fundamentally... Guys, the guy is, let me just check really quickly. He's 21st among all position players in wins above replacement. This guy is better than Steven Kwan right now. He's higher up than our boy Jerickson Profar. He's higher up in wins above replacement than Freddie Freeman right now. So for a rookie to be on that level, I think says a lot. And don't get me wrong, there has been some Jackson Chourio of the Brewers. Unfortunately, Jackson Chourio was like... Merrill wasn't a god to start the year, but he was a very good above average player. Jackson Chourio just couldn't hit for a while, so he's not going to be in the race. But overall, I just think that what we're seeing here is just so much potential, so much excitement, and so much of the game winning stuff. Every single hit that this guy has feels like it matters. It doesn't feel like Jackson Merrill has been an empty stats guy, in the sense that he hasn't been a guy that the Padres are down by 5 and then he hits a solo shot in the bottom of the 9th inning. You know what I mean? Yeah, he's had that happen once. I think it was last week in was it the Cardinal series? I forgot which series it was when he hit the home run. I think it was the bad showing from Logan Gillespie or something like that. And he hit a 2-run home run in the 9th inning, and it didn't matter. But it's like, aside from that, Merrill has all of his hits felt big. This one puts them up by 2. You know what I mean? And we've had all the game-tying home runs, as people have talked about, like all the records he's broken in the 9th inning basically this year by rookies and in general. It kind of reminds me vaguely of like the Jorge Alfaro year. Remember when Alfaro was like obscenely clutch? That's kind of what it reminds me of. And that's why I think that Jackson Merrill probably has to be rookie of the year. But of course, we're not going to spend too much time talking about that. We got to talk about the rest of the series and answer some of your questions. But first, let me take a second to talk to you guys about one of our sponsors today, and that is the always indubitably fantastic, that is FanDuel. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the thing with FanDuel. You know, you've heard us talk about them plenty of times. That is because they are America's #1 sports book, and we have something a little different for you. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV-based plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Check that out. Do September 22nd. Y'all drafted your fantasy teams yet? Or are you just big fans of football? Well, don't worry. FanDuel's got you covered. So go check that out, guys. Visit FanDuel.com. Download America's #1 sportsbook. Go check it out. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NFL, and many others, including Locked On. Obviously, as evidenced by this podcast. Go check it out. And just like that, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, your team every day, thriving and vibing, of course, always into segment number 2, where we must discuss a sad game. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a sad one. It is a very sad one. And it is Saturday's game in which the Padres got absolutely scallopped by the Tampa Bay Rays in this one. It is because of Randy Vasquez, plain and simple. We talked about him before. I think that it's been made abundantly clear that he's not really a starting pitcher caliber pitcher for a while now, because when you look at all of his numbers, sorry for the sound there, when you look at all of his numbers, when you look at all of his pitches, with the exception of 1 or 2, batters are just crushing them. He doesn't really have a good go-to throwaway pitch that he can kind of just get batters to chase, set them up for a good count. Doesn't really have that. I think he's a long inning reliever for this team, potentially in the future, and I still stand by it, and I've said this for a while, that I think Johnny Brito, if there's going to be someone in terms of the 2 of them that they got in that Yankees trade that could potentially be a back-end starter, I think that it could be Johnny Brito. And in this one, you saw exactly why. 4 1/3, gave up 9 runs on 11 hits, 4 walks, 3 hits. Frankly, I could end the recap of that, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. I'm not going to talk about all the hits that the Rays got and all the nukes they were hitting off of him, other than to say that, yes, Randy Vasquez is really struggling. He was on a little bit of an okay streak lately. He did okay. I think that he was, sorry for the pause there. He wasn't blowing games completely like every other day, giving up 2 earned runs in 6 innings before, then 3 earned runs in 5 2/3, then 1 run in 5 innings. But the problem is that a lot of Randy Vasquez's good starts, it's like a little bit of batting average on balls in play, luck, and just balls, getting hit on the ground really, really hard. It's not like he's been pitching awesome, more that just, hey, sometimes when you pitch against the Pirates, they're not going to do much against you. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the situation here. he's done his work, you know what I mean? But every time he has like a stretch of just quality starts or even almost quality starts, he has a game sort of like this. And that's why you just saw that he was sent down to AAA, which I think was the correct course of action, especially with the hope that the Padres are going to get back some of their guys in the form of Yu Darvish. Hopefully soon that should be happening. And there's also rumors that Fernando Tatis Jr., by the way, will be back soon. So yeah, nothing too much there. I just think that he's not quite ready. And if you're wondering, they actually, after optioning Randy Vasquez to AAA 23 hours ago, they recalled Tom Cosgrove. Maybe he figured out whatever it was that's been wrong with him this year. They also selected catcher Elias Diaz to the Major League roster. They designated Lake Bachar for assignment, and they also reinstated Wandy Peralta, which makes me nervous because Wandy Peralta is the ultimate can't throw strikes guy. Doesn't give up the worst contact in the world, but he does not throw strikes consistently, so that should be interesting. But bottom line is, you know, this Padres team has been really good in the pitching department, especially in the bullpen department. Specifically, just to break it down, since the All-Star break, since the trade deadline, the Padres have some incredible numbers as a bullpen. Now, granted, it's been a month. It's not the be-all and end-all, right? Like, this isn't the largest sample size. But let me tell you, man, they have been dominant in terms of strikeout rate. They are first in Major League Baseball with the Cubs coming in at second place, 27.1% strikeout rate, and the Padres are 30.5% strikeout rate. In terms of ERA, they don't necessarily have the best, but they certainly are close there. They are fourth in ERA, 2.91. If you're curious, the Rays, Astros, and Giants have been the best since the All-Star break. But in terms of FIP, field independent pitching, you know, taking out the luck factor and whatnot, the Padres are first in Major League Baseball by a comfortable margin, 2.7, compared to the D-backs at 2.92. God damn it, Arizona. You know what I mean? But they've been amazing. They're not giving up nearly as many home runs. Yuki Matsui has kind of been one of the only relief pitchers that's been like hampered by the long ball every now and then. He's just had a couple of like, what the heck are you doing moments? But otherwise, this is what happens when you don't have to rely on, you know, Enyel De Los Santos, unfortunately. That guy was giving up home runs left and right, so you're seeing the home run rate is going drastically down. If the Padres are going to make a run, this is going to be a big part of it, and it's going to be a big part of it that, say, you know, if Musgrove, you know, maybe they get to the playoffs and they don't get the great Musgrove, it's good to know that, let's say Joe goes 5 innings, gives up 3 earned runs. It's good to know that you have a bullpen that might keep it that way, right? So that's what's so good about this team, is that you're just seeing that they have the winning formula to win playoff games and games that matter in a big way. Even if the Padres' ability to drive in runs in high leverage situations with runners in scoring position, even if that weren't to go their way, there are other things on the team that have improved, right? You get Musgrove back. You get Yu Darvish. Martin Perez is a little bit better than your Randy Vasquez, right? You have all of that going. You have a better bullpen. So at least there's hope that if they're unable to make comebacks, it's okay. We don't have to worry about, is it sustainable for them to make 5-run comebacks every time? It probably isn't, but it probably won't be 5 earned runs because of the rest of the team getting better. And Elias Diaz, by the way, is part of it. Luis Campusano, I saw everybody roasting him. The Hive, folks, I think it officially is dead. Don't get me wrong, it's not like the hitting part of it wasn't dead. He actually had a pretty good, weekend series. He got a couple RBIs. Actually, no, he didn't. He had some walks. There we go. He had actually like 2 walk games, which is great. Love that very much for our guy who's not very good at drawing walks. The problem is the defense is just appalling. In some of the major categories, if you want to look at them, blocks above average, he's 61st among qualified catchers. Catcher framing runs, he's 54th. Caught stealing above average, he's 57th. Just all the framing metrics, he's really, really bad. And you see him make little mistakes. It's really, really frustrating. As someone who believed in Luis Campusano, especially the hitting tool, I thought that what would happen is that Luis Campusano would be like a 105 to 110 WRC plus guy, which would be awesome by catcher standards, and that his defense would improve from last year as a rookie, and, well, basically, ostensibly a rookie, and that he would just be a solid guy. But unfortunately, the defense is about just as atrocious as it was before, and his offense has gone down dramatically. He just doesn't hit the ball hard enough. And he doesn't walk enough. So what we're looking at, it looks like, is just what happens sometimes, which is that prospects don't always turn out. I still got love for the man, and I still, by the way, stand by my overall reason for why the bit started, which is that I didn't understand why Austin Nola had a monopoly on the catching time a year ago when he wasn't really doing anything and he was bad. But maybe the Padres do something, but I still stand by that. So We'll see. But overall, Elias Diaz, one thing that he can do is just play defense. And if we're being honest, hey, the Padres have had some luck taking guys off the scrap heap. Shouts to the Rockies for being stupid and not trading him when people actually wanted him, because famously the Rockies are rebuilding. So I don't know why you guys aren't trading your best players. Remember when the Rockies had like that Daniel Bard like magical Disney movie season where he comes back at age 36 and all that, and he was great. And then they were like, yeah, we're going to extend him at age 36 instead of trade him at the deadline and get stuff. So just incredible stuff. Always be grateful you're a Padres fan instead of other teams. So that was really great. Overall, they get absolutely creamed in Saturday's game, and I think that Campuzano was getting a lot of heat for that because of the defense. He also got some heat on Sunday, deservedly so. Elias Diaz, though, at the very minimum, he is going to be a guy that is just solid behind the plate, and that's why I would not be surprised after a little bit if that's maybe what the playoff roster looks like, because that might be the situation we're heading towards. Not a great batter, right? I think Campuzano's better, but I think that the defense is why you might see Elias Diaz catch some games going forward. But we're going to have to see, because a little bit late in the season to be making a change at catcher, at least in my opinion. But that's why we have Higgy. Anyway, Friday's game, though, that one was an absolute blast. 13-5. We're going to talk about that game a little bit and then get into some of your questions, to which there were not too many this week, understandably, because I, died. So there's that. But we're going to talk about all of that and more in just 1 second, guys. But first, we have to take a second to talk to you about the fine folks over at GameTime, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the thing with GameTime. I love it. I love it so much. I love it so very much. I love it, folks. You know why? Because if you're trying to make plans and sometimes things go awry, GameTime is actually going to make it easier for you to get tickets cheaper the closer you get to tip-off, to first pitch, to kickoff, whatever it is. And now, GameTime even has a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. GameTime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And there's a Labor Day offer today. 50% off Labor Day for Diamondbacks Dodgers. Go check that out, guys. You got to check that out in the on the website and what have you. And here's the thing. What I love about them also is it's not just sports. They also got comedy, theater, concerts, all sorts of things that they've got ready for you. Curated deals that help you out, whatever works for you best. Lower ticket prices, you get views from the seats, all sorts of really, really cool stuff, all in pricing. Also, some good ticket coverage as well. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So what are you waiting for? Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off over at GameTime. Go check it out. And just like that, everybody, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, thriving and vibing as always. Well, not always thriving. I'm still a little bit sick. You might be able to tell we're in segment 3 at this point that I've paused the episode a lot. That's because I've been coughing like crazy. But it's okay. We persevered, just like the Padres. 13-5 victory on Friday. The Padres offense absolutely showing up. Martin Perez wasn't great in this one. 5 innings, 4 earned runs on 7 hits, whatever. The Linsanity run for him is over. I do think, though, that they've seen that they can turn him into a back-end guy that helps them for the rest of the season. And again, that matters, right? Martin Perez, even if he was okay, I just never looked at that acquisition as, we got a playoff starter. Unfortunately, Jack Flaherty might have been that, and they didn't go that direction. They decided to prioritize bullpen, which is fine. But they go in this one, Martin Perez. He's not the hero, though. The Rays score 5 runs, but it's 4 of them are off of him, and then 1 of them off of Jeremiah Estrada, who lost his control for a little bit. Again, I still like Estrada. I still think that his potential is really great. I think he could get better as time goes along, but he's not the shutdown, ace to Robert Suarez that I think we thought he was, which is also, I think, why they improved the bullpen. I think that that's an underrated aspect. It wasn't just the Santos and Peralta and some of these guys that you didn't trust, right? I think it was also that AJ Preller was like, I think Estrada's good, but I don't think he's this 8th inning lockdown guy that we think he is. Instead, that's why they get Scott and Jason Adam and Brian Hoeing. So another thing that happens, though, in this game, the star is Sean Reynolds, of all people. And here's the thing. This man has been a beast, and he went nuts. 1 2/3, gave up 2 hits, whatever. He walked 1. He struck out 5 batters in 1 2/3 innings. This guy's been amazing. 0.82 ERA so far. His strikeout, his swing and miss stuff is exciting. This is what's so great about the Padres is that, yes, while they did have some bullpen troubles early on, what was so exciting is that they had reinforcements in the bullpen, or in the farm system, with an Alec Jacob, with a Sean Reynolds, with, obviously they had Jeremiah Estrada come up. That's been awesome and really fun to watch. And I think that one of the things that I'm going to be looking into is how they address this in the offseason. Like, are they going to just say, you know what, I think our bullpen's great. We'll have Suarez, we won't have Tanner Scott, but maybe they won't need to re-sign that guy. Maybe they'll just be like, hey, we got Hoeing, we've got Sean Reynolds. Maybe that's okay. Adrian Monahan, he goes an inning, doesn't give him any hits, strikes out 2 in this one as well. Not that it was needed, though, because the Padres offense was absolutely dynamite. Jurickson Profar, he gets a hit, and 4 walks in this game for our guys. Shout out to Jurickson Profar, upping that on-base percentage. We love you very, very much. If you're curious, on the season, still 382 on-base percentage. He's been amazing. Donovan Solano, 1 hit in this one, but it was a 3 RBI banger. Jake Cronenworth, he goes 2 for 6 in this one with an RBI as well, but not as much as the boy Manny Machado, 3 for 5 in this one with a home run, 4 RBIs on the night. Xander Bogaerts going 1 for 3 with 2 RBIs as well and a home run. Love to see that from Bogaerts. Bogaerts is one of those players where, like, the stats almost, his season is lost in a lot of ways. I mean, he was awful, dreadful to start the season and then was out for so long with that injury, right? But what you have seen is that he's just been a solid sort of contributor in the lineup. He's not amazing, right? But he's been a solid contributor, and he's been playing some good defense as well. Jackson Merrill also gets an RBI because, of course, he did. David Peralta going 2 for 3 in this one with a home run as well. Luis Campuzano, I told you he drew 2 walks in this one. And Mason McCoy, only bad thing on the night, 4 strikeouts. It's Golden Sombrero. There was a point, I don't know about you guys, where I was like, is this kid going to be okay? Like, you know what I mean? But it unfortunately doesn't look exactly like that. But still, I prefer them giving him at bats to him, trying him out a little bit more than a Bryce Johnson, who just has not been able to do too much. But hopefully they get Ha-Seong Kim and Fernando Tatis back, at least by the time the playoffs come around. That's what you want. Because we haven't seen the lineup at full strength in a little bit. Obviously, they just get Bogaerts back, but then they have Tatis and Kim gone. So hopefully that turns around come playoff time. But overall, really great showing. Already talked a lot about the bullpen. So let's talk about some of your questions. Didn't get too many, but I did get 2 main important ones this week. First of all, one from @MichaelBarrett5758. Question for next mail. Excuse me, folks. Question for next mailbag. That was a weird pause. To what extent have Machado and Bogaerts bounced back from their slow starts to the season? How have their turnarounds contributed to the Padres' recent success? Well, I'm glad you asked, sir. Here's the thing. When it comes to the Padres' success over these last few months, it's been a litany of things. In fact, it's funny that the Padres, basically their success, what I think is so funny about them, is that they have mostly, it feels like this is a team that has done well with those bargain bin options, right? Like, no one would have expected coming into this season that you would get as much you would get out of Jurickson Profar, Jackson Merrill, Donovan Solano, Kyle Higashioka, these type of players. David Peralta's been amazing. So Machado's turnaround hasn't been the only reason why this Padres offense has been so deadly, and especially as of late, but he's been one of the biggest reasons. In fact, his numbers since June, he's been good for like 2 months, basically, pretty much. This coming by way of Al Scott. Since June 19th, Manny Machado has a 935 OPS. And by the way, they've had one of the best records in baseball over that same stretch. And if you want to take it even further, from Clark Farenthold, Manny Machado's, in the 7th inning or later with runners scoring position or on base since the All-Star break, Machado has posted a 226 WRC+, a 493 weighted on base, and a 407 batting average. Now, granted, is that a little bit of a small sample size? Yes, because 7th inning or later, like, is it a little cherry-picked? Yes, but it just shows you that he also has been a part of this late inning surge comeback thing that the Padres have done. He's been good for so long, and he's been good to the point where it's, like, very clear, at least in my opinion, at least to me, that the injury is exactly why he was so bad to start the beginning of the season. Like, it's very, very evident that that injury is exactly why he struggled for a lot of this year. And that's okay. That's fine. It happens, right? Let me be very clear. It's okay. It's okay. that I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. That Machado, like, I don't know. Like, I don't really know what else to say about Manny Machado at this point. I think that those first few months you just saw, he was swinging through pitches. He was chasing pitches that, like, it just didn't look like he had the full swing power. Like, the power was sort of there. It's down a little bit, obviously, and that's expected with age, especially with a guy who, had that injury that he was recovering from. But it seems like it's very evident that from the early months, like, all of it can be attributed to that, because the hard hit rate is back in the 90th percentile, average exit velocity is in the 92nd percentile, all of that stuff, he's been great. One thing, though, that is down that I don't think is necessarily a product of the injury is his walk rate. Right, like, he isn't walking as much as he typically was in prior seasons, especially in, like, 2022 when he nearly won the MVP, or 2021. So he's a little bit down in terms of the walks, but that's to be expected with age. So he's regressed in that area, but he hasn't regressed in power, which, in my opinion, if you're going to regress in something, I'd prefer it be a little bit of the walk rate, as long as it's not egregious. It's not like he's walking 1% of the time, right? So he's been great, and I think it's all attributable to the injury. However, with Xander Bogaerts has shown potential and a lot of good signs, right? Ever since he came back in July, in 13 games in July, he had over 1,000 OPS. But then this past month in August, he had a 643 OPS. He's still able to draw some walks and get some singles, but he's still not hitting the ball hard. So his thing isn't only just injury, which is why I'm still concerned about him. He's still been better, right? And I have faith. I have faith that in the playoffs he could show up. He's done it before, right? He has 2 World Series rings. I have some faith in him going forward. When it comes to being like this dynamic all-star player who's worth his contract, though, I don't know if we're seeing that. I don't know if we've seen a turnaround on that level. I need more hard hit data. I just need more. I need more to see that. I will say I'm happy with how he's transitioned to second base, given that they didn't even like prepare him for it heading into the season. He just kind of like found out right when the season started. So that's been good. But Bogaerts, unlike Machado, it's not just that you can say, oh yeah, he got hurt and that's why he was bad. No, it's a bunch of different things, because as we've talked about this season, last season, when he got hit by Spencer Strider on his wrist, he was immediately dreadful. And then at the end of the year, he was awesome. 138, I believe, WRC plus in like the last in the second half of the season. So he was shown like, okay, he had a bad hiccup in the first half and it coincided with the wrist, and then he was great at the end. But then this year, before all that, there was no injury apparently, at least designated that we know of, and he was dreadful. And it's concerning that his hard hit rate has gone down by every year. So don't get me wrong, Bogaerts is turning it around. I still think he could be a very useful player and a very good player. Maybe next year you could see a 3.5 win season. But that's the problem, is this is a guy you were expecting to be like a 5-6 win player. So we're already in danger of that. But being a productive player, I still think he can be, and he's shown some good signs of turning it around. Hitting for power this weekend, that was very nice, the home run against the Rays. But overall, that's kind of it on those two. The other question that we got this past week is one that I got from multiple people. I want to shout out David Lamper on Twitter, who responds to my tweets and is like tweeting at me this about a lot. Why is Jake Cronenworth in the 3 spot? That's a good question. And frankly, I don't have a full answer. It was a lot at the beginning of the season. There was a lot of reasons why this made sense. There was actually like a lot of really interesting articles and little interesting takes of why he was hitting third. Because like, why is he hitting third? Shouldn't you be having, a Tatis there so he could drive in more RBIs? There's a bunch of reasons for why I think that isn't correct. But the reason why I think fundamentally is heading into the year, they needed a lefty. And heading into the year, this is why I said that at the beginning of the year, why I was a fan of it. First of all, he was great to start the year. Let's not forget, Jake Cronenworth is still a solid player. He's still hitting better than previous years. I think his 2020 season was clearly a little bit of a fluke, but overall, his expected weighted on base is still really, really solid. Basically every single year, with the exception, I believe, of last year, although last year I think can be chalked up a little bit to some injuries. But this year, freshly engaged, you know what I mean? Mr. Jake Cronenworth, congratulations. That happened months ago, I know, but still, he's been a lot better this year. He's hit the ball a lot harder than usual, and his walk and lack of any chases and all that stuff, he puts together really productive at bats. And like I've said, his expected weighted on base every year of his career, 393 in 2020, which again, that was a little bit of a fluke. 344, 303 in 2022, then 305, then 345. So it shows you that this year he has been back in a lot of major ways. His expected stats, all that stuff point to him actually getting a little bit unlucky. He's solid. The problem with him, and the problem with the whole Jake Cronenworth thing in general, is just that he's better suited to be a second baseman because he was a great fielder there. And that's why his WAR and whatnot isn't all that high. But in general, this year to start the season, it was correct that he was hitting third. OPS is 735 in April, then 779 in May. He was just a really solid player, 720 in June. Lately, he struggled, but in August, 757 OPS, by the way. So he's been good this month. So I don't understand why we're getting this question exactly right now, specifically now, because he has been good. However, aside from the expected stats, aside from all that, aside from the fact that he was known for not being a big double play guy, although he's hit into more this year, I will say, the other thing with Jake Cronenworth is that they needed him because he was a lefty, and heading into the year, only him and Jackson Merrill were the lefties in this lineup. However, that has changed. You have, not only do you know that Jackson Merrill is legit very good, you also have Luis Ariz. You also have Jurickson Profar, who's batting amazing. I know you had him, but he was a switch hitter. And then you also brought in some dynamic options across the team with someone like a David Peralta, who has been awesome for the Padres so far. And then you've got that. So you've got Ariz, David Peralta, and Merrill all sort of like breaking out. And now you face a situation where, okay, I understand at the beginning of the year why we wanted to do this, because you don't want to just have all righties, because then that could be exploited in pitching matchups. But now, with the fact that Jake Cronenworth hasn't been as awesome as usual, why is he still there? I think that that's a fair question. The reasons that I could come up with are, number one, he has the best walk rate on the team outside Ha-Seong Kim and Jurickson Profar. Fernando Tatis Jr. is currently hurt, but aside from him, he has the best walk rate. So while you may love Merrill, and some people might be saying, why isn't Merrill batting higher up? Merrill isn't good at drawing walks, and you might want that towards the top of the lineup. And frankly, I just like having Bogaerts and then Merrill right after, Merrill kicking off into a Peralta. I like having a little bit of oomph as you get past like the first four batters. That's just me. But I think that's what it is. Merrill isn't a good player at drawing walks, and you want that a little bit out of your three spot. But he is able to hit for power and all that stuff. I'm just saying, I think that's the calculus that the Padres are making, is that he's just solid. And Cronenworth also is not the best base runner necessarily in the world every now and then. So I think that they're like, you know, there's just a lot of conflicting ideas here, right? I just think that maybe they face righties more often, so they want to have him at the top. And again, I just think that Merrill doesn't walk enough, at least currently. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. He's been so good out of the sixth spot, then why would you change that? So that's the best answer I come up with. I know I sound really jumbled again. I'm still a little bit sick, but that's the best reason I could come up with for now for why Jake Cronenworth is still batting third. So hopefully that at least somewhat addresses the question just a tiny bit. But yeah. Guys, this is my return to the podcast. I know it was a little bit of a bumpy ride. Again, I'm still just a little bit sick, but hopefully, don't worry, the Padres will not be. Tomorrow's episode, we are recapping this game against the Tigers. We're also going to go over Lockdown's latest power rankings that dropped, because I have some beef with them. And then also, this week, we're also probably, hopefully, I think it'll be Wednesday, we're going to be talking with Aram Late, and for obvious reasons, because of being sick, wasn't able to do that last week. Good to do a crossover with him. Might talk to Ben Kaspick of Locked On Giants as well. Really good stuff. Really exciting week for a lot of different reasons, from football to comic books that I like coming out to video games that I like coming out. But as always, the Padres are number one. So stick here, of course, to Locked On Padres. We are officially back, and send in your questions. Might even answer them throughout the rest of the week to make up for the fact that I was not here. So send your comments and questions on Twitter at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, or at @LO_Padres, or in the YouTube comments, or DM me, whatever you want. Do that. It's an open mailbag, you know, like open relationship. It's like open mailbag this week, I guess. But anyway, guys, until next time, stay safe, and of course, stay faithful. My fire faithful homies. Take care.